Welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to be here with you today to unpack a seriously complex, dense, and frankly deeply impactful geopolitical event, the 2026 Lebanon War. My goal today is to give you a crystal clear, structured, and completely impartial look at the facts, the timelines, and the data. We're going to figure out exactly what happened on the ground and, more importantly, why. Now, you might be wondering, how on earth does a conflict that kicks off over 1,000 miles away in Iran trigger the massive displacement of 1.2 million people in Lebanon? It's a staggering scale of human movement, right? And it's a real causal mystery of international relations that we need to untangle together right now.
Okay, let's dive right into this. We're going to map this out chronologically and thematically. First up, we'll look at the origins of the conflict. Second, how the ground war escalates. Third, the humanitarian impact. Fourth, domestic and global reactions. And finally, we'll look at the fragile ceasefire.
Part 1. Origins of the conflict. The geopolitical catalyst.
Let's move to the timeline and see how this all builds, because to truly understand the fighting in Lebanon, we actually have to zoom way out first. This fighting absolutely did not start in a vacuum. The timeline kicks off heavily on February 28, 2026. That's when a joint U.S. and Israeli strike in Iran resulted in the assassination of Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. In direct response to that, just a few days later on March 2nd, Hezbollah in Lebanon retaliated by firing rockets into northern Israel. This was the spark that resumed major hostilities. And then, just 2 weeks later on March 16th, the Israeli Defense Forces, or IDF, officially began targeted ground operations moving into southern Lebanon.
Part 2. The ground war escalates. Defining the battlefield. So, zooming into the actual military theater now, we aren't just talking about your typical daily border skirmishes here. This rapidly evolved into a huge, multi-layered attrition operation. And to really anchor our understanding of these ground maneuvers, we have to talk about the Litani River. While it's obviously a vital Lebanese waterway for the country, strategically it acted as the absolute geographic boundary for Israel's planned security buffer zone. Throughout the entire conflict, controlling access across this river and destroying the bridges that span it became a massive focal point for the IDF. And this brilliantly illustrates the core friction here. You've got two fundamentally incompatible objectives clashing on the exact same piece of land. On one side, Hezbollah's stated goal was to force an Israeli evacuation from seized territories and completely stop Israeli aggression. But on the other side, the IDF's stated goal was to secure that buffer zone we just talked about to entirely remove the threat of Hezbollah to northern Israel.
To actually achieve their goal, the Israeli military defined what they called the Yellow Line. Think of it as an expanded 55-town security zone in southern Lebanon, meticulously mapped out by the IDF to establish a forward defense area. To secure this massive footprint, Israel eventually deployed 5 full divisions into the region, systematically pushing toward and then past this boundary line.
But the ground war was also punctuated by some really massive aerial bombardments, probably most starkly with Operation Eternal Darkness on April 8th. What's shocking about this is that just hours after a temporary regional ceasefire was announced between the US and Iran, Israel launched its largest airstrikes of the war. They reported hitting over 100 targets in just 10 minutes, literally raining down on command and control centers across Beirut, the Bekaa Valley, and southern Lebanon. This single operation resulted in the deaths of over 350 people.
Part 3. The humanitarian impact. A nation displaced.
Because at the end of the day, when armies move, it's the civilians who pay the price. Just think about this number for a second. 1,200,000. That is the sheer number of Lebanese nationals who were forced to flee their homes just to escape the bombardment and the ground invasion.
To put that staggering displacement into perspective, that 1.2 million, that accounts for more than 1/5, over 20% of the entire population of Lebanon. Seriously, imagine your own country having to absorb 1/5 of its population, packing up their lives and moving in a matter of weeks. It created one of the fastest-growing refugee crises anywhere on the globe.
And the toll on the system itself was just as devastating. Looking at the sheer figures, over 3,750 people were killed, and that includes both militants and civilians. More than 11,600 people were injured. The physical landscape of the country was completely reshaped, with over 40,000 homes totally destroyed. Not to mention vital infrastructure, like the Khamenei Bridge, which was the main artery connecting southern Lebanon to the rest of the country. Gone.
Part 4. Domestic and global reactions. Lebanon fractures.
This level of military escalation, it created an absolute, unprecedented internal crisis for the Lebanese state itself. We saw Lebanese Prime Minister Nawaf Salam come out and announce, quote,
a total ban on all military activities by Hezbollah. This represents an incredible political fracture. You have the government openly challenging the militant group to surrender their weapons to the state.
So the crucial point is, you're watching a government desperately trying to reassert its authority in the middle of total chaos. Not only are military operations banned, but the government literally declares the Iranian ambassador persona non grata, demanding he be expelled for interfering in domestic affairs. Following that, dozens of Iranian officers, who were believed to be advising Hezbollah, end up leaving Beirut. The instability hits such a fever pitch that Lebanon is forced to postpone its parliamentary elections entirely, pushing the whole shebang all the way back to 2028. Meanwhile, the international diplomatic response was, to put it mildly, deeply polarized. On one side, the US and Israel view Hezbollah strictly as an Iranian proxy that requires total elimination to ensure any kind of regional security. Conversely, countries like Pakistan, acting as regional mediators, along with other actors, strictly condemn the Israeli ground invasion as an illegal occupation. They demanded an immediate halt and full respect for Lebanon's territorial sovereignty.
Part 5. The Fragile Ceasefire. An Uneasy Halt.
So if we zoom back out to the macro level to see how these immediate hostilities actually wrapped up, we see this slow, stuttering grind toward peace. April 16th brought a temporary 10-day truce, which was heavily mediated by the US. By June 3rd, an agreement was finally reached on establishing pilot zones. And then finally, on June 15th, Pakistan, acting as a primary mediator, announced that the US and Iran had agreed to cease all military operations across all fronts, officially aiming to terminate the macro-level 2026 Iran war.
Now, what's really interesting here is the profound disconnect between the global peace deal on paper and the actual reality on the ground. Because on June 15th, while regional US-Iran operations are officially terminated, Israel openly vows to keep its forces inside Lebanon to maintain that buffer zone. They stated very clearly that the threat in the north just wasn't fully removed yet.
Which leaves us with a pretty massive, provocative question to ponder. With a regional ceasefire officially declared, but troops very much still standing on the ground inside Lebanon's borders, has the 2026 Lebanon War truly ended? Or has it merely paused? The geopolitical ramifications of this are absolutely still unfolding. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this helped bring some clarity and structure to a truly complex chapter of modern history.